We are continuing our series on reviewing the 2022 Green Bay Packers with the running backs and the wide receivers. The grading system is the same, with A being excellent, B being good, C being average, D being disappointing, and F being why the heck are you still on the team? This list will include all the players that suited up and appeared in games for the Packers, including ones that were let go in the middle of the season. I'm looking at you, Amari Rodgers and Sammy Watkins. So let's kick off this video with our running backs. Aaron Jones had another good season this year, but you have to wonder if he could have had an even better one if the Packers just used him more and used him properly, as he was the best player on the offense. And also with injuries that kept him out of the second half in a couple of games that also slowed down his production. But he was still a really productive player, was setting a career high in both rushing yards and receptions. He finished the year with 1,516 total yards, with 1,121 of those being rushing and the other 395 being receiving yards, and 7 total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 5 receiving, which is really low for him overall. He didn't get nearly as many rushing touchdowns as he normally does, as the Packers sometimes refuse to just give him the ball near the goal line. And also, when they did decide to run at the goal line, they normally gave it to A.J. Dillon, especially later in the season. He also struggled with fumbles this year, having a total of 5 of them, some of them in very costly situations, like in that last game against the Lions. But he is still a very talented running back. He's still performing very well for the team, and so I'm giving him a grade of B. While not reaching the same levels as he did last season, Dillon still had a pretty solid year. He wasn't really used properly until later in the year, when we actually started using him in short yardage situations and around the goal line. But when he was used, he was pretty good, where he had 6 of his 7 touchdowns in the final 6 weeks of the season. He finished with 976 total yards, 770 rushing, and 206 receiving, and 7 total touchdowns, with all those being on the ground. Dillon, still a really good running back, and a guy you want on a roster for his bruising style of rushing that is really good down the stretch in the red zone. We just need the Packers to use him right in order for that to really be effective. I am giving Dillon a grade of B- for the 2021 season. Now we move on to the wide receivers, where we start off with Allen Lazard, who had the best season of his career in terms of receiving and receptions, while also being one of the best blocking wide receivers in the league. His play against the Dolphins alone, where he took out 3 guys by himself, incredible. But he also had his chance to be the number 1 receiver for the first time in his career, and he posted a career high 100 targets for a career high 60 receptions for a career high 788 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. He was one of Rodgers' most reliable and trusted targets this year, especially with the young guys not really gaining that trust until later on in the season, and should command a good price tag as a free agent this offseason, one that I do not expect the Packers personally to match due to him not really being worth that price tag, just my personal opinion. But he still had a very good season, the best one of his career, and I'm giving him a grade of B. Next up is our second round pick, rookie Christian Watson, who had a slow start to the season with some big drops, especially the one at the first play of the season where he had a 70-yard bomb from Rodgers that he just dropped through his hands, which was very unfortunate. And he also dealt with some injuries as well throughout the year. But when he got going, man, we saw the beginning of an absolute stud of a wide receiver. He turned it around halfway through, especially in that Dallas game when he was like one of the main reasons we won. He was scoring off jet sweeps. He was scoring on burning people. He was making contested catches. He is a number 1 guy. He can be that number 1 guy if he takes the next step next year. And he finished the season with 66 targets, 41 receptions, 611 receiving yards. and 7 receiving touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns as well because, like I said, he got that speed that you can just take it to the house. And I am so excited to see what he does in his sophomore season. He is going to be really, really good for years to come. For this year, I'm giving him a grade of B. Being a fringe 7th round pick that was thought to maybe have been cut in the preseason, Torre did relatively well in the brief time he was on the field. He finished with 5 receptions for 82 yards and 1 touchdown. And it'll be interesting to see if the Packers clear up some room in that receiver room with guys like Watkins being gone, Lazard probably being gone. If he'll get more opportunities next season to really show what he's got. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can contribute potentially. But for right now, I'm giving him a grade of C, as he performed about how you expected for a 7th round rookie. The third of the rookie wide receivers that we are discussing on this list, Dobbs was expected to be a nice piece added to the offense, as he is a more polished product than Watson was coming out of college. And he was that when he was healthy. The problem was he struggled with injury this season, missing a ton of games in the middle of the season due to having a high ankle sprain. Before that injury, he was making great progress in the offense, and then he was slow out of the gate when he came back for the last 3 or so games. He finished with 67 targets for 42 receptions, 425 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It'll be interesting to see, as with the other 2 rookie wide receivers, how he develops into next season. But for this year, I'm giving Dobbs a grade of C+. Brought in to be a veteran presence in the wide receiver room, and also to appease Aaron Rodgers, who really wanted Cobb on the team. Cobb played relatively decent when he was on the field. The problem was that, like in the last few seasons with him, he has been hurt. But still finished with a respectable 50 targets for 34 receptions, 417 yards, and 1 touchdown. It will be interesting to see if he is brought back next year, if Cobb doesn't straight up retire from the NFL. But if Rodgers is going to be on the Packers, you're going to expect Cobb to probably be back as well. And for his season, I'm going to give him a grade of C. Oh, Amari, you were not good for the Packers this season. He started the year as the main kick/punt returner again, even though we all knew that he was an absolute disaster back there in 2021. And it went the same way in 2022. It was so bad that he ended up being cut by the Packers after week 10. After he had 5 fumbles in 10 games with the Packers, all as a returner. And he was also never really on the offensive side of the ball as well for the Packers. He was picked up by the Texans, where he had more success on a very terrible Texans team, but still not a lot of production out of him, as you see on the screen now. We had such high hopes for him when we drafted him in the 3rd round of 2021, but he was an absolute bust. And he gets a grade of an F because he was just that bad. The final player that we're going to be talking about today is Sammy Watkins, who was the big free agent addition to the Packers offense last year. And he was good for about 2 games before he got hurt, as usual for Sammy Watkins. He had a good game in week 2 for Green Bay, but just couldn't stay healthy or productive enough to warrant him being on the team. And he was released in week 13 and was signed by the Ravens soon after. Not a great stint for Watkins, but I am going to give him a grade of D because unlike Amari Rodgers, he at least had 1 good game for the Packers. So to wrap up this video, we're going to look at the overall grades for each of the position groups. Running backs, grade of B-, which is pretty respectable, but definitely lower than I think a lot of people were expecting, as we thought the Packers would run the ball a lot more, and therefore our running backs would be more productive. But that just simply never happened this year, as we really didn't run the ball nearly as much as we should have. And a wide receiver grade, C. We were about an average little bit below average wide receiver group with some really good promising guys in Dobbs and Watson, but a couple of underperforming players in Watkins and Amari Rodgers that really brought down the overall grade. Be interesting to see as we only have Watson, Toure, and Watson, not Watkins. I'm having trouble with W's because they're hard. With Watson, Dobbs, and Toure being the only guys still technically on the roster. Be interesting to see what the Packers do in the draft and in free agency to address the receiver position. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it all. And if you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you again very soon.